This is the hill of Il Council. We'll connect that a little bit later. The other ridge is Ramat Rachel, and the ridge behind that is Bethlehem.
Wow.
Bethlehem is literally 3 hours on horseback from here.
Wow.
Okay, or 15 minutes on bus.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow, wow, wow.
Okay. So who came from Bethlehem?
Jesus.
Yes, but why did Jesus come from Bethlehem? Because David comes from Bethlehem, and David has just now become king of the United Kingdom. He doesn't want to use Bethlehem as his capital city, so he looks around and he finds a little city nestled here to the bottom of the hill. Now, I need you all to stand up a minute, and I just want to point out, because we'll be there a little bit. See the olive tree here is kind of making a balagan for me.
Yeah.
If you look at the other side of the hill, behind the olive tree, you can see there's a road on the other side of the hill. Everybody see the road on the other side?
Yep.
Okay? There's a white car right there taking the curve on the road. You all see where the curve in the road is? The road goes,
Oh
curve
yeah.
goes up there.
Way down there.
If the car misses the curve, it runs into a house with a blue door.
Yeah.
Everybody see where I am?
Mhm.
Yeah. Now I need you to walk along that row of houses. Okay? One house, two houses, three houses, four houses has 2 stories with a staircase up the right side of it.
Yes.
Yes.
You're going to be in that building a little bit later this afternoon. When you look to the left of that, you can see a wooden structure, one of the few wooden structures that you can see here, with a stone embankment underneath it.
Yep.
Okay,
Everybody
I
see
see
what
that.
I'm talking about?
That's what your original
That's
house.
the palace of King David.
Oh shucks.
Wow.
With the green stuff?
And that
over
house,
there?
he took that from the hill.
You see this olive branch sticking
Yeah,
out?
yeah.
On the other side of that olive branch is blocking your view.
Yeah.
Tell me?
Yeah.
Yep.
The house.
Why was the original city of Jerusalem down there and not
Yep,
up
up
here?
here.
Because it makes sense to put cities on the elevation. What do they have down there that we don't have here?
Water.
Water. We'll talk about that later on with the tax pedal down there. So far, so good? Now you can sit down. That's kind of here.
I will look for you.
Remember on the Sea of Galilee when we were on the boat and they stretched hands out and I said from here to here 70% of the Gospels were written? Right. We're going to do the same thing here. And from here to here, everything that the Bible says Jerusalem wow. All the things that happened in the Old Testament, King David, King Solomon, the temple built where you see that golden dome, okay, all of that literally right in front. If I could put you in a time capsule here, running around, you'd see the whole Old Testament playing out here. Then you'd see the whole New Testament playing out here. Then you see the Crusader. I mean, this is where it is. And it all starts off with the city of David down there, but then Mount Moriah that you see behind me. Now, again, mountain, hill, mountain, we're not always sure, but Mount Moriah is where it all comes out. So David actually buys up the plot of land, and everything that we know says that Solomon built his temple where you see that golden dome. That temple is destroyed by the Babylonians. Anybody remember that? Okay. Golden dome. Golden dome. Okay, that's Mount Moriah. That's Mount Moriah. Underneath the golden dome is Mount Moriah. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. Later on, Ezra and Nehemiah will come back, rebuild the walls around the city, and rebuild the temple where you see the golden dome. Again, there's an argument about this. I'm going to kind of put this in parentheses. A lot of people say maybe a little bit there, a little bit there, but basically, let's say Mount Moriah is there. That was a little temple that was built or renovated, okay? And later on, along comes Herod the Great, Roman period. He says, I don't want to only renovate the temple, I want to renovate the whole mountain. Okay, so let's use my nice little baseball cap. If this is Mount Moriah, okay, well, it's not like that, it's like this. It's a little bit squishy, but okay, if this is Mount Moriah, all right, this is the Kedron Valley, that's the valley that you see running on this side. On the other side of Mount Moriah is a very shallow valley that we're going to see a little bit later. It's hard to pull it out now, called the Valley of the Cheesemakers at Teropio. And here's a temple on top. The temple sits on the bedrock of Mount Moriah. Then along comes Herod the Great. He says, I'm going to change not only the temple, but I'm going to change the whole mountain. So what he does is he builds walls around the mountain. On this side, on the southern side, he puts a southern wall. On the eastern side, he puts an eastern wall. On the northern side, he puts a northern wall. And on the western side, he puts what? Western wall. And then, can I have your notebook a minute? And then, puts a roof on top of that. So instead of a mountain, I have a big, massive platform with 4 corners. Guys with me on this one? And on a piece of the bedrock of Mount Moriah sticking up from the middle, he builds a big, massive temple. You're looking at the temple platform. You're looking at the southeastern corner of the temple platform down there.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
see the big corner of the wall?
Yeah.
And in the middle of the eastern wall, that's the wall that we see here, you can see the eastern gate, the closed off double doorway of the eastern gate in the middle of the eastern wall. And at the time of Jesus, instead of that golden dome, would have been a big, massive marble, white marble building, twice as high, more than twice as high as that golden dome. So use your imagination, a big white marble building, the temple itself, that would have broken the horizon behind it.
Wow.
It was huge. It was wow. It was amazing. That's why when Jesus comes over this hill with his disciples, they all said, wow, and they couldn't understand why he started crying. So we'll connect to all of that as we go. Are we okay?
Yeah.
That's the visual I want you to have in your mind. This is the amazing temple. This is beautiful. I mean, Herod did an amazing job. And people from all over the Jewish world and the country were coming up here. In front of the temple would have been a big, massive altar. You would have seen the smoke going on. This is where it all comes together. Then you would have been up here sitting on the top of the hill, 71 AD. The Romans break through the walls of Jerusalem, break through the walls of the temple platform, and what they do is they completely dismantle the temple on the temple platform. And as amazing and as wonderful as it was, think about the devastation of dismantling the temple, and more than that, what's the temple?
House of God.
House of God. The temple is also the sacrifice. Temple salvation. They take that apart. The people watching this lose their salvation. You understand? Now the solution to that came 69 years before that, but you understand how devastating that was. And the temple platform is left clean of any structures. What the Romans didn't destroy was the actual platform that Herod put there. And that is still the Herodian platform that we see today.
Wow.
We're okay on that one? It was only later on when the Arabs come here, conquer this area, and they decide that the temple platform is a holy site to to Solomon and to Jesus, by the way. According to Arab Muslim tradition, Solomon and Jesus are prophets. So they clean up the temple platform. Shut up. They clean up the temple platform. Does Siri talk to you every once in a while? And they're the ones who kind of made the temple platform kind of a holy place. And a little bit later, they connect an event from Surah 17 of the Quran that says that Muhammad got on his magical beast, El Burek, flew out to the furthest mosque, El Aqsa is what they call it, and there gets on top of the hill, goes up, has a powwow with Gabriel, goes back to Mecca and Medina, and they decide that this temple platform is that furthest mosque. Like we've not had enough balagan, okay, now we're a holy site for the Muslims too, the third holiest site after Muslim and Mecca and Medina. And the gray dome that you see on the left side of the temple platform is the El Aqsa Mosque, that's the site. And the golden dome sits on top of a piece of Mount Moriah, actually standing up, piece of the original bedrock of Mount Moriah. If you walk into that golden structure, by the way, if you look closely, it's octangular. Remember the 8 sides, Byzantine architecture. But if you walk into that, you'll find yourself facing a piece of the original bedrock, which is why it's called the Dome of the Rock on top of Mount Moriah. And according to tradition, a lot of people believe that's where the temple is. So far, so good. So that's the situation. Later on, the Crusaders come, they conquer this, they take down the crescent on the Dome of the Rock, put up a cross, and this becomes the Church of the Dome of the Rock, and so forth and so on. All the different kind of details of the creed. So this is the city of Jerusalem. This is the basic aspects. This is Mount Moriah, where all of this kind of zooms together. And maybe just before we kind of go to one thing, according to Jewish tradition and in the book of Zechariah, the Messiah is going to come here, and here he's going to stand on top of the Mount of Olives and raise everybody from the dead. Which is why, if you want to be first in line to be raised from the dead, where do you want to be buried? Big Jewish cemetery right here. People have been coming here for 1,000 years to be buried on the Jewish cemetery on the side of the Mount of Olives. And what you're looking at are Jewish tombs. You can see some of the Jewish people praying. The box is not the tomb. Jews have to be buried in the soil because the book of Genesis says from, well, we say from soil to soil. The actual Hebrew word is soil, ground to ground, okay? Got translated into dust, but you have to be buried in the ground. So the body is in the ground. By the way, it's in the ground without a coffin. We don't bury in coffins because we don't want to separate, okay, between the body and the ground. But what we do is wrap in shrouds. Does that remind you of something?
Yes,
That kind
Jesus.
of puts everything together.
Yes.
Okay, so, and you're seeing that they put the box on top. That's just a type of tombstone. You all see the stones on top of that? According to Jewish tradition, after the resurrection, everybody's going to be resurrected. Go into that golden gate that you see there and build the third temple. So the stone is a symbol of resurrection. Here's something that you have to be part of that building process. It's a symbol of building something on top. That's why you go to a Jewish funeral, you put a stone on the tomb. Or did you see the movie Schindler's List?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, Schindler's List, actually the last scene, you see the people walking by his tomb and putting the stone. Those, by the way, are not the actors or the actual people that Schindler saved. I don't know if you know that, and their descendants. After Schindler died, they paid to have his body exhumed, is that the way to say it? From his grave in Argentina, they brought his remains, and they carried him over on Mount Zion over there on the left. If you look directly in this direction, you can see a big structure with a gray cone on top and 4 little towers and a big tower next to it. That's Mount Zion. That's the Church of the Dormition. Just to the left of that, we're going to be there a little bit later today. On the side is a Christian cemetery. Schindler is literally buried there. That's where that event. And they walked by and put a stone on his grave. So you're looking at Jerusalem. I think it's fascinating. We've got beautiful weather. We don't have thousands of people, okay? And I'm being very, very blessed with this kind of atmosphere. And let's see if we can tile. Yes, one more thing I want to tie. Again, it's my job to kind of bring this into the present because in 1967, until 67, half of Jerusalem is in Jordanian hands. All of this is Jordanian territory. At the last 2 days of the 6-day war, the Israeli government sent the Israeli military into the city of Jerusalem to conquer and reunite the city of Jerusalem. So in 1967, we conquer this hill, we conquer the hills on the south, and the Israeli general, Uzi Narkis, actually radios the Jordanian general inside the old city of Jerusalem. He says to him, listen, this is the holiest site for all 3 religions. Let's not have a firefight inside the old city. If you surrender, I will allow you safe passage to Jordan. The Jordanian general says, no, I cannot do that. I mean, I cannot hand over the keys to the holy site to the Muslims. So the order to actually enter the old city of Jerusalem and reunite Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, the Jewish quarter, and everything that we are under Jewish control, the Israeli general who gave that order was sitting literally right up here on the Mount of Olives. I find it profound that the order to go back and bring all of Jerusalem underneath Jewish control for the first time in 2,000 years takes place on the same place where Jesus ascended to heaven the last time. I mean, again, you can't invent this kind of stuff. You can't put it together. So let's just tie all of this together and kind of do this together. And I think there's a lot more that I think we want to tie together. And on the tombs, we just did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a sign of
AGE.
resurrection.
The reason they tore down the temple was to get the gold on the top.
Well, they tore down the temple for a lot of reasons. The Romans realized that the temple is the focal point of Jewish tradition and Jewish life. You don't rebel against Rome, okay, and live to tell the tale. And one of the things that the Romans did is dismantle all symbols of Jewish sovereignty. Yes, they could have left it standing, but a rumor was spread that there was gold inside those marble blocks, and that's why they broke them down and actually threw the marble stones into the fire. Okay, so yeah, they were trying to get to the gold underneath. By the way, the destruction of the temple was so devastating, all right, and so much gold was brought to Rome that the economy kind of boomed in a crazy way. The gold that was taken from the temple was used to build the Colosseum. We know that today. So many slaves were taken from Judea that it was cheaper to buy a Judean slave than it was to buy a donkey in Rome at the time.
Wow.
I mean, this is devastation in a huge term. But let's tie it all together, and I think